So I was hanging out in New York City at Pogue & Po, making some unbelievable True North salmon. I made a ramen that had so much balance in flavors and textures. Went shopping at the Union Square Market, introduced everything together and created this heart-healthy dish. So I'd like to break this recipe down into 3 separate steps. Step number 1 is to make the broth. Step number 2 is to saute some beautiful vegetables that I just picked up at the farmer's market here in Union Square. And step number 3 is to lightly and very carefully simmer the True North salmon in the broth that we've just created. We put it all together in a bowl, boom, ramen and celebration. So we bring our dashi up to a simmer, and then we add the aromatics, the other ingredients. We start off with some sake, that's the drunken part of it. Then we add some of the mirin, which is a sweetened rice product. It's a cooking rice seasoning that gets added, that adds sweetness to the dish. Then we added a little bit of acidity by adding some rice wine vinegar to it. And then finally, we're going to add a little bit of soy sauce, but this is an organic shoyu, which is a really good deep brewed soy sauce that adds nice saltiness to it and gives it a little bit of dark color. Now, also for aromatics, we're going to add some fresh ginger. So we're going to grate that directly into our broth and bring that up to a simmer and allow that to cook for about 5 minutes. Okay, so for the next step, we have to cut some of these beautiful fresh, farm fresh vegetables that we just picked up from the Union Square Market. So we're going to start with some eggplant, some baby eggplants, some radishes, some cremini mushrooms, and some oyster mushrooms. And we're going to put those all in the pan. We're going to saute those nicely. We're going to add some of the broth and allow them to just wilt. Over here, eggplant to one side, bok choy over here, mushrooms cooking, and finally I'm going to add some radishes. I'm going to put those right in the center. After a few minutes and the vegetables had a chance to just slightly saute or wilt, it's time to add the dashi broth to the vegetables and allow them to cook the rest of the way. So after the vegetables had a few minutes in the pan, they're softening up a little bit, we're going to finish the cooking process by adding the dashi broth to the vegetables. While these vegetables are simmering ever so gently, it's time to introduce the main character of this dish, the True North salmon from the Gulf of Maine. This salmon grew up in the pristine waters of the Gulf of Maine, and its refrigerator was the Atlantic Ocean. It was ordered and it was flown out into my hands within 48 hours, which is about a week fresher than most other fish that you get on the market. Trust me, this is fresh. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a couple of nice little pieces of this salmon, then we're going to put it in a pot and we're going to baste it in this very hot simmering liquid, this dashi broth, and it's just going to bring everything together, and it's about doing it nice and slow. And I actually want it to come out slightly pink in the middle because to me that's the most silky texture of this salmon. It shows off it's fat, you know, in such a proud way. You talk about Wagyu beef. This is the Wagyu of the fish industry right here on this platter. So now we're just going to simply put those 2 beautiful pieces of True North salmon into a pot, and we're going to add our dashi broth, our drunken dashi broth. That's with the sake. So this True North salmon is just about ready to be plated. So while it's last couple of seconds in this beautiful broth, it's time to assemble the final dish. So in a large bowl, I placed a small square of rice ramen noodles. These noodles cook immediately. You don't have to put them in boiling water or anything. You just pour the hot broth right over the top of it. So I placed it in the center of the bowl so that we can arrange our farm fresh vegetables around the outside of it. And I'm going to cover this to allow the hot broth to steam the noodles. Okay, so now place that right on top, nestle it, put some nice hot peppers around the outside. We drop a couple of eggs in there just to sit them in the broth. The garlic scallions around the outside. Okay, then what I like to do is put a little bit of pickled ginger into the broth. So when you hit this ginger, it's going to have some good acidity as well. Okay, now after you've added your sesame seed and seaweed garnish, it's time to dig into this delicious True North salmon simmered in drunken dashi ramen. Spectacular. Thanks to Taste of New York and Poke and Po for allowing me to show you this heart-healthy recipe today. For more heart-healthy recipes, go to TrueNorthSalmon.com.